there seems to be a very large pushback against things like artificial reefing and the creation or artificial reefing of at least ships. There's been some pushback against artificial reefing of oil platforms when they're done, and there's been some pushback on the creation of artificial reefs in California. And I don't know if I don't understand the resistance to creating habitat necessarily, although I understand creating habitat means destroying other habitats, so that's a whole new thing. But
it didn't come up for lobsters.
Okay.
And all your questions are great, and
Yeah.
I would love to just run them down, but it didn't come up for the Lobster Advisory Council because the territory for lobsters are so huge.
Yeah.
And there was nothing on the man-made size scale
Yeah.
that would have made any difference, really. They just needed to protect areas.
Difference in terms of
Population.
I don't know.
Lobster pop. It might be a local area. I mean, if you put down
You don't think the
some habitat-
Redondo Beach breakwall is a huge lobster habitat?
It is.
Or
but it also serves another function. And
That's
so
true.
the whole idea of doing something that large,
Right.
that labor intensive, and that disruptive to a sand habitat, just to have more lobsters. I mean, there was thank God if nobody was watching way back in the 40s and 50s because they put out all those rock piles in Santa Monica. You've dived them, right?
I don't think I've been to the ones. I've been to the ones around
Star
King Harbor.
Scotland? Have you
I know
dived
about
Star
the,
Scotland?
it is on my list. I
you
have
haven't seen
never.
it? Okay.
I have not.
Up near the Star of Lobster, Star of Lobster,
Star of Scotland, which is a wreck kind of northwest of Marina Del Rey, correct?
Is.
Okay.
It is.
So that's its location.
It's in 70 feet of water, I think. It's wonderful for lobster. It's wonderful for giant sea bass.
Yeah.
It's a really cool shipwreck.
Yeah.
But when you dive it, then you turn around and you head out to the rock piles.
Okay.
And they gridded it. The fishermen way back in the 40s and 50s when like nobody was watching, they gridded it out so you could always find them. And they made these wonderful rock piles. And they were about my height, so 5 to 6 feet tall, and they were maybe 10 to 15 feet around. They varied because they were just dropping rocks from the surface.
Right.
But, oh my God, the life. And so they wanted to fish the northern Santa Monica Bay, which is all sand.
Right.
And they made this, I don't know, hundreds, but certainly dozens and dozens of rock piles. And it's fantastic. And today you'd have to, I don't even know what it would take to do that.
I mean, but that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Why couldn't we do that?
Well, I don't want to go willy-nilly, right? You can take anything too far, but in the same way that you say, like, okay, you need an MPA, and you want an MPA that connects these territories, wouldn't it be sensible to create certain reef habitats that'll also connect reefs across the bay? I like that idea.
Yeah.
Because, one, it creates more access and availability. Like, habitat destruction is the number one thing that we see harming wildlife and game on land. And there are certain groups that are doing really amazing things to buy back habitat and convert it back to its natural thing.
Right, Ducks Unlimited.
The Ducks Unlimited is an
Nature
amazing
Conservancy,
thing, which
amazing.
has a dual purpose. They preserve a lot of land so that they can manage it through hunting, which is good. Which is good because it actually is a self-funding group.
Trout Unlimited grew from that exact model. They're fabulous.
It's a really good model that people don't pay attention to. And by creating these kind of jumping off points for the species to survive, I think it's good. And I don't know why there's no I mean, maybe because we're not as desperate.
Yeah.
There's not as much threat. But I don't understand why there's not a proactive attempt to do that. Because I think it's twofold. Because if you have these environmental things, the environmental space for species to flourish, I think it's going to create more resiliency, which I think environmentalists ultimately want. And I think it also creates more opportunity for people to interact, which is where my personal vested interest is. And I think it's also, I mean, you've got 12 million people in this small area, which is the Santa Monica Bay, right? This is an enormous amount of people.
Thank God for those artificial reefs that are out there. They're really
100%.
fun. Yeah.
They're super fun. We don't even have really good wrecks to dive, but the wrecks that we do have out there are just amazing experiences to go on.
They really are.
I mean, I wish
we had more Ships to Reefs. I think Ships to Reefs is an amazing program. I wish we had more.
I so wholeheartedly support their goal. I struggle with their method because it is so slow and ineffective. I want, and I'm sure everybody has this with anything, right? There is no reason there shouldn't be 3 Yukons in the Santa Monica Bay. There's no reason. One, the Yukon brings in $1 million a year to local communities.
They validated every penny of that.
If you had 3 of those in the Santa Monica Bay, all the hotels along Marina del Rey, Redondo Beach, Hermosa, Santa Monica would get massive influx of divers coming from other places. You would have increased habitat for critters. You would have a growth of local economy. There is, maybe the sandworms would suffer. Like, that is the only group that I could see, harmed by that. But there's just no movement. There's no movement,
it's
and
so
it drives
slow.
me nuts. Well, and I understand you don't want to do stuff willy-nilly, but I don't understand why people can't get behind this.
Yeah, and they're all sitting there. The Ghost Fleet is sitting in Sausalito up there, and it's basically
they're rotting away, and we're going to end up having to pay to have them removed. Instead, let's get volunteers. Got them. Now, honestly, I think now is the time when it should be happening, because you have COVID, a whole bunch of people out of work. You can have a government stimulus program, drop a bunch of wrecks, put people back to work. How amazing would that be?
There's been a lot of talk of that.
Tell me who those people who are talking. I want to go talk to them.
No, it's just in general, with the humanity of the United States that's just going to be frustrated for a very long time. Maybe it's time for another WPA of some kind, where the government actually gets things done that they couldn't get done before by just paying for it.
Well, and take that opportunity to improve the quality of existence of our country. I'm a big, I look back at some of the leaders of the 19th century who were forward enough thinking to make things like national parks and protect these environments so that they knew that by doing that, their grandchildren would be able to experience this world, and they saw value in that. And I'm kind of the same mind in that. As if my grandkids don't get to go snorkeling in Palos Verdes and see bat rays and leopard sharks and the beautiful sunlight shining through kelp, and there's nothing but sarcasm and dead reef out there, I will feel like we have failed them.
We failed, yeah.
Or catch a fish out there. To go out to Rocky Point and pull up a kelp bass and fillet it on the boat and see the birds come around, and those are all really amazing experiences that if people haven't done it, you got to get out there.
Yeah, you're missing a great part of life.
And we need to be responsible stewards of it too.
And unbelievable that the state of California was able to get it on the ballot, get it voted for, and it actually is there.
Yeah.
All of the California has more protected waters than any other state of the union.
Isn't that insane?
There's 13 coastal states that do not have even 1% of their waters MPA'd.
That